You're experiencing the Authentic Chaos podcast, an exploration into our inner selves and journeys of self-discovery. I'm your host, Vahagan Yarnosian, and joining me for a triumphant return, Elle Mills. Welcome, Elle.
Thank you. Good to be back. Not as in person, but still here.
You know what? We're not as in person. We're many, many miles away, but we make it work.
Exactly.
So, what's been exciting you lately?
I think I've had a bit of time off from when I last saw you.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been really reconnecting with my family and my friends and just coming back down to me. And now I'm going to be back on trip soon. So it's kind of like a refresh. Like I just need a pause and then it's all fresh again and exciting.
Yeah. How often do you get time off?
It's really hard. I don't actually have you work one trip, you get this time off. I actually did 91 days straight before this break.
Oh my God.
So it's pretty bad, but you just push through when you're in it. You know, you're feeding off other people's energy, but you realize the second that trip stops, you crash. But I'll probably be due. I have a few days off in July and then a few days off in August. So pretty much I'll be doing June through August straight through again, which will be good.
Yeah. Do you feel like you're excited to get back on the road?
Yeah, I really am. I haven't been back to Vietnam for a while, so I'm running a Vietnam trip, which I can't wait to see again. I have a lot of really good friends there, so well overdue.
And I'm sure you'll be showing off your seatin.
Yeah, definitely. The song is going to be used a lot more than probably you guys saw, but
I will say that when a few of us went to that beer Lao party in Laos, they played C10 and like the whole room went nuts. We thought this was like some small thing or some like meme, but no, everyone loved it.
Oh, I love that. It's so funny when you have this like connection to a song and then it just spreads.
Yeah. And I'll include a link to the song for watchers if you're interested in seeing it. It's definitely an entertaining. It's definitely really catchy. It's super catchy.
It'll be stuck in your head forever. I would say days, but forever.
Yeah, I don't think any of us are forgetting it.
No. And then the dance to go along with it and all that. Yeah.
You got to do the dance. It's all about the dance.
Of course. So good.
Okay, so you've got traveling coming up again. Before we get into some more of that, like you mentioned, you were reconnecting with family. How long had it been since you had been back?
So long. I was back in New Zealand after COVID up until November 2020, and then I hadn't seen them since November 2020, and which is a really long stretch to not see your family. And I have 3 nephews, and they're all quite young. And the youngest, he was baby when I left him, not talking, not walking.
Yeah.
So when I saw him and he's having full-blown conversations with me, I was like,
oh my God.
You've grown up.
I can't, like, what did that feel like?
It's so beautiful to kind of see them grow. And then they've seen me like this. I'm always like this imaginary computer screen person. And the older ones are 8 and 6. They kind of know me a little bit more, but the youngest, I was live and in person. So it was a bit of a shock.
Yeah.
But it was really good to have those like bonds, even though he's still quite young, he's 3. Just have that bonding time and just spending as much auntie time as possible with them. I'm going to try to make it back a little bit more just because I think they need me and I need them.
Yeah. I think it's a beautiful reminder that community is such an important part of the human story. And the first community that we have coming into this world is family.
Yeah. And as much as my job is amazing and it's super social, I do describe it as the most social but lonely life you can imagine, because I meet amazing people, but everyone is always going home. They're always going to leave. It's a temporary person. And so those figures that are really connected to you permanently, you know, your family, your best friends, those kind of people, they're usually back home and you don't get a chance to talk to them or see them as much.
Yeah.
So it's good to find that grounding again and making sure, you know, you have that home base. And my heart's full. I'm a very good
Yeah.
husband.
But but how I see this is like couldn't you form like a deep relationship with, or like a friendship at least, with the people that are going home?
I do, and I do have travelers that you know, I do talk to still.
Yeah.
We still have a really strong connection, and I try really hard with that. But it's also hard because they're going back to a life where I'm on, like they're on holiday mode when they're here,
Sure.
and sometimes they just see me as, you know, the trip manager. I'm just that, like I'm the work.
You're the
So
help.
I'm the help, yeah. So, you know, there is that line, but there are quite a few that, yeah, I do keep up with.
Yeah.
You know, we comment on each other's stories sometimes, or we have full blown conversations, or we FaceTime, or I've caught up with them actually when I've gone back to Australia or other places. So, yeah, it's good, but it's also really hard keeping up with people, and
Oh,
it's
for
a
sure.
big fault.
I mean, you see like hundreds and hundreds of new people like regularly.
Yeah. And as much as like I want to, it's, I always feel guilty where I want to spend so much time, you know, cultivating those relationships. I then always have these new people that I need to form connections with before they go,
Yeah.
and it's hard with that balance, but with experience, you do get better with it.
Yeah. And you know what? You need a little like, yeah, it's a two-way street. You can't be the only one like pushing a relationship that, or a connection that
Yeah.
won't be.
Yeah, and I think that's what's good with the people who are permanent in my life,
Mm.
where it is a beautiful two-way street. Like my best friend Kiara, we haven't seen each other since 2020, or 2021, I would say. And the other night she called me, and we had a
Oh.
4-hour conversation, just
Oh.
catching up on everything and anything, and just, I mean, we will always have that sisterly bond, which is great. But we can go a space of time without talking, but we know no matter what, if I call her, she's going to answer, and vice versa. Like we're there for each other.
That's so important to have. I feel
Mm,
like I feel like especially in the US, especially among men, like you don't really get like a deep connection like that. Like someone you can just call and talk to about like anything. Like it can be such an isolating existence. And so it's a
yeah.
beautiful thing that you've got that.
No, I'm very blessed. I'm so lucky to have her in my life, and I know it is really hard. I find like certain countries a little bit harder to find those connections, and it's just some countries or cultures even. It's very much an individual, like, you know, where did you go to school, and like am I going to
Yeah.
associate with you, rather than like the core of who you are. They're more about like your status or where you're from, which can be quite difficult to form a connection around.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on like why that is? Why some cultures are that way?
I don't, I mean, I feel like a little bit of it is, it's more so in the Western culture, I would say. New Zealand has it as well. I did find it strong in the States, especially of like, you know, what neighborhood you grew up in and what school you went to. And that's how they were going to form their opinion of you based on a stereotype of that area.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that's not me though. It's not me. And I don't know where it stemmed from. I don't know if it's from a capitalistic viewpoint of like pursuing individual goals, and if this individual isn't going to like push you to where you need to be, then they're not worth knowing, rather than just enjoying a person for being that person, if that makes sense.
It totally does, and I think you're spot on there. I Because like in America we have the American dream, And the American
Mm.
dream is this idea that you can go out on your own and create your own life, create your own success. Like if you like work hard enough, you can make it so. But there are a lot of things that it encourages like this more like comparing yourself to others in terms of your status. Like you said, like it starts with what neighborhood did you grow up in, what school did you go to, and then later in life it's like, okay, well what job do you have, or like what clubs are you a part of, or whatever, like just various new things to like
Mhm.
add to that status. And part of that is being seen as a success. And I've even had conversations with my own dad about this, about how he's like judging his own children based on a metric of success that they don't have themselves, but he has. And he just interprets his metric of success as like the general metric of success. And to be fair, that's his metric of success is definitely more like aligned with the capitalist narrative in the US of like you've got to get a good job and make as much money as possible and like have a little empire of your own and whatever. Um, which is just it just feels like such a rat race. And
Oh, 100%. That is the word of like my buzzword. I use it all the time. The rat race.
yeah, uh, I didn't realize it was your buzzword. Why and why is
Oh.
that?
I think because I've traveled so much that it's way more obvious to me now when I can
Hmm.
see it and then I can feel it. Even just coming back to Adelaide, Australia, um, the other week when I was coming back from Bangkok, and I just thought, I was like, wow, it's such a beautiful city. I did love my time here, but I feel like everyone was just rushing to do things, and it didn't really make sense. I'm like, everyone's dressed up in their corporate outfits, but no one looked happy. Everyone's just like running from their lunch break to get back to the office, and they're just
Oh,
running home to get home before they need to cook dinner and get ready to go to bed before they do it all again tomorrow.
yeah.
And I was like, oh, but you can feel it. You can absolutely like feel everyone's a little bit more stressed. I was like, ooh, and it makes you question yourself. You're like, am I doing it wrong? Should I be pushing myself further than? But
Yeah.
I think that's where gets lost. Everyone's just be like, oh, well, I see this person is this, stressed out. I should be up to here, and the rat race.
Yeah, I think that brings up an interesting and important topic, and one I've been reflecting on a lot is like culture and a lot of other things like religion and politics. There are these like there I call them like collective narratives, in that
Mm-hmm.
they're kind of these ideas. They're not like there is nothing in nature that makes a culture. Like a culture is just a bunch of people like with the commonalities of a bunch of people's like mentality, more or less. Like it's the average that is the umbrella for the people that agree to that culture. And so it's like we all add to that culture, but then that culture superimposes on us. So
Mm-hmm.
it does feel like an aura or like some kind of external force, and it can like place some role on your mind. You're like, well, I'm comparing myself to other people because I don't want to seem like the weird one. So I want to fit in. Well, to fit in, I need to. This is what the culture is telling me. This is what the narrative is telling me. I need to maybe work harder, or I need to be stop being considered this like vagrant.
Yeah. But it's true. I think it is such a place in our society where people have to feel like, you know, overworked in a way. Like I find
Yeah.
people find comfort in I've been so busy lately, and then everyone just talks about. I'm like, that's not a good thing though. But it's a measure of comparison of like, well, have you been super busy and overworked? Okay, you're doing it right. So I'm doing it right because they're in the same boat. And it gets a little bit into a snowball effect where people just collectively bound into it.
Yeah, and I think busyness, it kind of like downplays the importance of like the white space in your life, of like the calm. And
Mm-hmm.
it just feels like sometimes you're encouraged to fill the time or fill the void. Like
Yeah. I mean, I think I know we were talking earlier about me being a sloth, which I like to say as well because I think it's good. Before I used to work insane. I used to work two jobs, like probably close to 80 hours a
Oh,
week. And I
geez.
thought I was like, yeah, I'm kicking corporate's butt. I'm making
Hustling.
it. I was not happy. It was a joke. And now I'm like, it's okay to do what I call a D&D day, which is like do not disturb, but I say do nothing day. Do
Yeah.
nothing. And allow yourself to be like, I've done nothing today, and that was fabulous. Do that.
Yeah.
You need it.
Oh, for sure, for sure. There's a reason why the Buddhist philosophy like encourages this like, hey, just sit around doing nothing. That's all you have to do, and it produces amazing effects.
Yeah, and it's funny because I have friends that I talk about. I'm like, have a D&D day, do nothing, and they
Hmm.
take that as okay. Well, I'm just gonna go to the gym, and I'm like, no, no, no. A do nothing day is you can be a complete sloth. You can sleep in, you can order Uber Eats, you can just
Hmm.
sit in the bathtub and listen to your favorite music. You don't have to do anything, and also you don't need to plan out your do nothing day, which is where they go wrong. See, I might do nothing to it, but I'm like, no, it ruins it. It is an absolute bliss of like allowing yourself to sit in nothingness and not
Yeah.
feel guilty.
Yeah, and you shouldn't feel guilty. In fact, I think we get so caught up in like feeling guilty about the things that we enjoy. It's like, why
Yes.
shouldn't we enjoy life? Like, why does it have to be miserable? Why are we suffering now for the hope
Hmm.
of like a better future?
Exactly. And you're not guaranteed tomorrow or next week or next
Yeah.
year. Like people are putting so much pressure on achieving everything now
Hmm.
but not in like happiness. They want to, they need all the promotions, they need to buy all the houses, they need to start the families. I'm like, I get, those are, important goals, but also where's the happiness one in there? Like,
Well, the consumerist philosophy doesn't really have happiness as a high metric. If you need
no.
for the capitalist machine to grow, we need to just be mindless consumers. I have this whole like theory that like maybe it's a conspiracy theory, I don't know, but like that capitalism like is antithetical to like mindfulness philosophies and like really tries to downplay them because if you are your own source of happiness, then it's harder for you to be convinced to consume. Like you can't
Oh, I would
yeah.
agree.
They can't
Yeah.
sell you like now they like you can buy pills to like make yourself happy. You can buy pills to make yourself less sad. You can like retail therapy. Like that
Oh, yeah.
shopping isn't therapy, but like it's accepted as like this concept.
Yeah, they've coined it really well. And I think that's a big thing when I moved out here in 2018 is I had a nice house. I shared my house, but I had, a big room, my own ensuite. I had it decorated beautifully. I was really proud of my stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this makes me comfortable and and the thought of getting rid of it at first, I was like, oh my gosh, I've, carefully picked out this beautiful pillow for my bed and this, piece of art. Like
Everything
it was
matches
just,
so perfectly.
yep. And I was like, oh, but and then the second that my brain, I don't know what it was, but my brain just clicked off and I just started getting rid of everything because I needed to pack it down to one suitcase. That was what I was
Mm.
allowed to come over with. And as soon as I started getting rid of the stuff, I was like, oh, I was like, am I a minimalist now? Is this what it feels like? I was like, is this what the hippie life is? But it was like this really powerful moment of just being like, okay, well, my stuff is no longer going to hold me to a place or emotions. I kept like, a memory box and everything, and I gave it to my mom to store at hers. But essentially, I was like, the rest of it is just things. And will I miss it in a year? Probably not. And I haven't. I couldn't even tell you what was in that house now.
I think that's a really good reflection and like good for like everyone to hear that like cuz sometimes when we live in these lives we think that this is how life is supposed to be and you were in that a life like that where you thought that's how life is supposed to be.
I think it's funny because like people know me in two versions where
Mm.
there's the Kentucky travel like impulsive, wild person. And then there was this whole corporate Eleanor. She was,
Oh,
yeah, I was working quite high up in insurance. I had the corporate 9 to 5 job. I wore the heels and the pantsuits every day. And that was 6 years of my life as well.
yeah.
So it's like I've had both, and I know definitely one made me a lot happier.
Yeah. But like, so I can empathize with that because I've had multiple versions of myself. Even concurrently, I've had multiple versions of myself. Like you're different. I was a different person to family, different person to different sets of friends, different person in like an academic environment. Um, and so I realized, or I learned through therapy that like, yeah, I had grown to have these like individual, like personas of myself, and there were like walls between them. And like part of my journey of like growing into myself and like becoming more me, more complete. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
how to say it, but like it was tearing down these walls and like more consciously and intentionally picking and choosing what I liked about all the different versions of me and like trying to create this new version of me. And
Yeah.
I'm wondering if like that's something that you've reflected on at all. It's like two different Eleanor. Or like are can have you taken parts from both, or is that something you've thought about?
Definitely. Even my name, I have, as you said, the walls. I have walls in between my name, whereas I call myself
Oh.
Eleanor. Eleanor is like base. She's, I guess, true neutral. And then, and then my friends, when I was growing up in high school in the United States, was they called me Ellie. So I
Mm.
associate Ellie with a very young version, quite naive version of
Hmm.
myself.
Hmm.
So I don't use Ellie anymore. I find that it's the naive young person. And then when I moved to New Zealand, I took back my name as Eleanor, and I was like, I'm going to be Eleanor again. So they all know me as Eleanor in New Zealand. When I moved to Australia, I actually changed my name to Ella, and
Oh,
I was a version of Ella. So everyone in Australia knew me as Ella growing up. Growing up, well, I wasn't growing up. I was in my 20s, but still
it's
growing
still
up.
growing up.
Still growing
I
up.
feel like I'm
And
growing in my 30s.
oh God, 30s are great. Yeah, we're still growing and thriving.
Exactly.
And when I moved to Asia, my name, I was going to be Ella over here. And then I was like, well, maybe should I bring back Eleanor? And of course, when I started introducing myself to a lot of the locals over here, Eleanor is not a very common Thai name.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Definitely.
So it quickly turned where I was like introducing myself to say, hi, I'm Eleanor. It was, L. I was like, yeah, just stop there. L. We'll make it L.
Uh,
And so I created L over here, but I quite like L as well. It's turned into the new flavor of the time, I guess.
I love this. It's like your what name you go by is a reflection of where you are in life and like literally where
Mm-hmm.
you are in the world.
Yeah, and it's also a really good cheat where if I meet someone and I don't know where I met them, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, Ella," I'm like, "I know you're from Australia." Okay, well,
Yo, that's that's smart.
and I know instantly if they call me Elle, I'm like, "We met somewhere overseas." Some little hack, I guess. But yeah, I kind of like having these versions of myself, and I know when to pick them up and put them down. It's a balance. But yeah, there's, the Kentucky L is also a curated person as well to make sure that when I'm in that mode, I'm very, very selfless, where I put my needs completely secondary. And I know when I'm in that mode, I'm in that. The second I'm not, I can bring it back and I'm like, okay, let's come back to what I need, what I want, and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Because that's hard.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, making those switches can be hard. And you know what? I have a lot of friends who maybe not like as part of their work, but like they find themselves putting their needs before others in a lot of cases. And like you do that a lot. So, do you have any recommendations for people who find themselves tending to do that?
I think it is all about recognizing, like, I'm going to put myself second for a period of time. Don't just put yourself second and forget why you did that. Think of the purpose of why
Mm,
you're doing it. I know when I'm at work mode, Kentucky mode, I'm like, okay, I have 27 days. I'm going to put myself second for 27 days. But within that 27 days, like the biggest trip I run, I find pockets. I know when I get to Chiang Mai, I go to my favorite little cafe and I have me time. Like there's little pockets in each of the trips that I make sure that I take away from the group and I allow myself to just be by myself for an hour or two. I'll call my family, I'll reset with myself. I might just have a long bath. I might go get a massage, but I make sure I have pockets within that where I take back my selfishness. And I'm like, this is about
mhm.
me. I need to refill my cup. So it's being really, really conscious of allowing your time frame of being second, but also within that having just pockets where you can refill your cup so that you're there for others.
Yeah, and I like the idea, this metaphor of refilling your cup, because it really, I feel like people, there's this big negative connotation on being selfish and like trying to
Mm-hmm.
take time for yourself, but really it's self-love, it's self-care. Like and these are concepts that everyone knows are good or like we've accepted are good. So like, yeah, we aren't superheroes. We can't just constantly be giving to others.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we have to give to ourselves now and then. Otherwise, that cup dries up and it's harder to give to others.
Oh, exactly. And I find a lot of people try so hard to, I'm not selfish. I'm not, and you should be though, because no one else is going to care about yourself as much as you care. So you got to put that work in. You got to retain yourself. And I admit I have a very selfish life, but in a great way. I hate that it has such a negative connotation to it because I'm the only one creating the story of my life. I'm the only one that's going around doing what I want to make myself happy.
Yeah.
No one's going to put as much effort in as I should be.
Yeah. I mean, a selfish life, you kind of have to be selfish to live intentionally. Living
Mm-hmm.
intentionally and being present requires you to be in the driver's seat of your own life. And yeah, that's going to require some selfishness. And that's not bad.
No, there's actually an episode of Friends. I wish I could remember exactly what it is, but it's Phoebe talking about how she wants to do a selfless act, something that's completely selfless.
Hmm.
And I think one that she gives to charity, and she's like, "Oh, I gave money." She's like, oh, "No, I feel really good about that." And then she realizes she's like, "It's not a selfless act to do
Oh,
that
because
because
she felt
I
good
get a
about
good
it.
feeling out of it." And I'm like, there's something good that you can be selfless and selfish at the same time.
Yeah, they're not
They're not
mutually
like completely
exclusive.
gonna cancel.
Yeah.
No, they're not gonna cancel out. Like you can do something nice for someone and that makes you feel good. You
Yeah.
can do something just for yourself and that'll also make you feel good.
Yeah.
It's
Let
fine.
the philosophers argue for ages if true altruism exists. If you can truly be 100% selfish and be like, I hate it, but I do it. I don't.
Yeah, I would love to see someone who is pure in that.
I live a miserable life. I'm constantly helping people. That's why I'm living the best life.
Yeah, I think of it like a cat. You know what? They provide enjoyment for us, but do they care? No. They're just living their best life, and
Yeah.
I think they're pretty happy. Like a house cat, like they are very selfish, but we get enjoyment off them, and they'll get the pets from us.
I'm sure, I think like house pets are truly blessed. They get a lot of their
Yeah,
needs taken care of and they don't have to deal with this cognition center that even questions our own happiness.
yeah. All they have to worry about is, am I getting a treat today? And
Yeah.
stop petting me if I'm annoyed.
Will I be fed? Will
Yeah.
I be loved?
If I reincarnate, I'm coming back as some rich housewife, cat or dog. Yeah, with the pampering, I'll take that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it sounds like a pretty chill life. But you know what? We should have that life now. or at
Yeah.
least give ourselves the pampering and the love and the happiness that we deserve. Why wait for why wait for reincarnation? Why wait for a retirement that may never come?
Hmm. Well, it's funny, like with the retirement thing, I've been talking to my mom and my stepdad about their retirement, which, they're getting into their 60s now, and it's something they need to think of. And it's funny watching their new chapter of life. And, they've talked about, well, what should we do? Should we just go to, a nice villa if we want to, or should we buy a house in the Greek islands, or should we just settle here and be still?
Yeah.
I was like, and the Japanese do it perfectly, where when you retire, when you get to a certain age, it's not seen as being quiet and being still and going to retirement home and knitting. Nothing of that. They go out and they travel. They're in the parks doing like these really cool, funny dances to keep them fit and active. I love it.
Yeah.
Just these old grannies, and like they just have a whole new lease on life, because essentially their family, their kids will look after them, so they're not really meant to take care of any bills or themselves, really. Like everything is catered for by the family. They're meant to enjoy that second part of their life. And I'm like, that's a great way to view it. And I'm telling my parents this.
Yeah.
I'm like, you should do that. Just, what do you want to do? Like, you're still fit, you're still healthy. I was like, why don't you live on a cruise ship for a year? And now they're actually considering that.
I mean, yeah, why not? I mean,
Yeah.
we only live once. Or no, sorry. Sorry, a bit of an aside, but you know how YOLO is a thing, you only live once. But I heard an interesting counterpoint on probably on Instagram or something, that no, you don't only live once, you live every day. You die once.
Every day. I like that. Yeah, you die once.
Yeah. So my thought is, like, if you're like my parents, for instance, my dad's retired, but like he kind of isn't the type to retire. Like he's always he's talking about doing other things, like other ventures and things like that. And it's like he isn't satisfied with retirement because he spent his whole life working, and that's what kind of provides him with fulfillment. I don't know if it's necessarily happiness, but it's fulfillment, and he knows that as happiness because he attributes like success with happiness and things like that. So he's not even like looking for a restful retirement. And
but I think that's good as well. My stepdad's down the same path where he's got 3 degrees. He's actually studying again because he thought, why not?
Oh man, nice.
He has like 2 jobs. He's very successful, and I don't think he'll fully retire. He'll just continue doing side work. Where my mom's like, I don't care. She's like, I'm happy to retire and just be on a beach somewhere. So she's got a different viewpoint of it, which I think is great. And I think somewhere in the middle, they're going to find the perfect retirement plan for them. They're still like a while off. I would say another like 6-7 years, but
yeah.
I think they'll figure something out.
One thing I find interesting, and I've been reflecting on this, especially in my unemployed state, and I've been reflecting on how, retirement is this interesting concept. It's this like new phase of life, but it's defined in the context of work. Like retirement is when you just no longer work. So it's interesting how like in like our societies, we kind of define our life as like pre-work, where you're in school and a kid, then work, and that's where you're being a productive member of society. Good for you. And then post-work.
Yeah. It's all based around work. It is a career that you have to define sections of your life. I don't know. I think about this often. I'm like, if there was no such thing as like the currency, like how we had to pay for things, and there wasn't like this need that you have to work in order to get things, what would our lives be? It would just be as opposite as it is now as possible.
How so?
Well, you think about like how everyone defines what they do, where they live, is based around a lot of their work environment.
Yeah.
So
people like, literally move for work.
I'm one of them.
I mean, to be fair, I was too.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It will decide where you live. Sometimes if your parents are in the military, you're going to be all over the world. It defines your connections to people, your workplace friends, like usually become real life friends or sometimes even relationships.
Yeah.
You spend so much of your day consumed with work, 8 hours a day or more just at work. Like, what would you do with those extra 8 hours? Like, what would we all be doing? Because it wouldn't just be you looking at one person thinking, oh, they're not working, they're a bit lazy. But if society, all of society was not at work 8 hours a day, give or take, what would our lives be? I honestly, I don't know. I think it just would be very fluid.
Yeah. And I think it would give us more opportunities to be creative. And
Yeah.
there are people who want to work. And you know what? I'm happy to like give them the opportunity to work. Like if that's what you want, that's what you want. But I think like as a society, we need like advancing culture means using your more creative endeavors, like creating art, creating music. For me, like this podcast is my creative endeavor, and I use a lot of my time to my that I own now to like just think and reflect and like yeah, just like reflect on things in life. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's so true. I mean, I get that we would need, the people who help out with like sanitation or,
Hmm.
keeping the world running.
Someone has to
And
clean the toilets.
someone has to clean the toilets. And that's the thing. It's an interesting, like, where would the balance be of like, I think of like maybe back in like the Roman times where everyone was a painter and a philosopher and they just had
Yeah.
grand parties. Like there wasn't a set 9 to 5, Monday to Friday work.
No.
But I'm like, I don't know if they were any better off.
Well, I guess what does better off mean?
Yeah, I guess a measure of happiness, but no one's around to really find out because they don't have the comparison to our life. Like we don't have the
Yeah.
exact comparison to theirs. Their measure of happiness would have been probably making it past the age of 20. Um,
Yeah. Who
who
like
knows?
maybe going to wild orgies and stuff was their happiness. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
like happiness is just such a personal concept, or it's supposed to be a personal concept.
Mm,
I think a lot of people will try to borrow whatever is culturally accepted as in the collective narrative of like what happiness is.
yeah.
But I think a lot of us, at least I didn't find my own happiness in that. And I'd grind and grind and grind and do the things that I was told I was supposed to. And then,
Hmm.
I'd get there and then be like, well, where is it? Where's my happiness?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely can relate to that where I'm happier now living with just my suitcase full of stuff in a bit of a transient role anyway than I was having consistency, whereas I know a lot of my friends, they really love that consistency and that security.
Yeah.
It's great for them. But also they constantly, I will get the comment so often, I wish I had your life. Your life looks amazing. I wish I could do what you do. I'm like, there's nothing stopping you. Essentially, there is nothing stopping you except yourself and the pressures you have on yourself. Like,
Mm.
you could have done this. You could still do this, but you have chosen a different path that you think will make you happy there. So pursue that or change.
I think it like another factor could also be like a fear of the chaos and fear of uncertainty. Like you said, they have a very secure
Mm-hmm.
life. They have their needs taken care of. Things should be good. But, you know, it's during COVID I was reflecting on how like the concept of certainty, especially with even with our needs, is just an illusion that like our society has created. Like as we've advanced as a society, we've taken care of our basic needs like food, water, shelter, but really those aren't certainties. Especially in the
Mm-hmm.
US where like so many people have like low savings and high debts, like the slightest medical inconvenience can like put you on the streets. And
Yeah.
And so, like, reflecting on that, I was like, okay, well, what else isn't so certain? And if certainty is an illusion, why am I running away from uncertainty? What is so scary about it?
It is. It is scary. I mean, I know the feeling I had before I decided to take the leap and get rid of my stuff and move overseas and, take this job that I had never worked in before, had no tourism background. And I describe it like standing on the edge of a cliff. It is terrifying standing on that edge. It is the scariest thing, looking over that edge, and the amount of time that you would just be like, I'm backing out. I can't do this. No, 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 no. Once you take that leap, you just know you're committed to it. You're like, well, I'm in it now and I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to enjoy the rush of it. And it's great, but it's that anxiety of taking the leap, which is such a cliche way of describing it, but it's so true. It literally feels like that.
Yeah, and sometimes you intentionally take that leap, and sometimes you're pushed off, and you're taking that leap regardless sometimes. And I think if that's the case, you just have to embrace it. And maybe we have to all embrace that we're not actually on this solid ground that we think we are, like that. Like this, the concept of certainty is the illusion. And maybe if we start to embrace the uncertainty in our lives and the chaos in our lives, we'll find that it upsets us less and that it's less scary. And then we can find a little bit of happiness in it. Hey, everyone. Welcome back. Apologies for the technical difficulties. You know what? Sometimes these things happen. That's living with uncertainty, baby.
Yes, absolutely.
We vibe unconditionally, like power outages, like anything like that. What connection
Just
issues?
roll with it.
In my listeners will remember that in my last Google Meet conversation with Tessa, my laptop died halfway through that conversation. So,
Oh, no.
You know what? These things happen. We learn from these situations, and we keep rolling. We keep rolling on.
Absolutely. I always say, be a circle, roll with it.
I love that. So this actually ties well into our conversation on like living with uncertainty. And we both kind of live with uncertainty in our own ways. And I imagine that a lot of people in my audience maybe aren't as comfortable living with uncertainty. So how do you have any advice for people who maybe are interested in taking that leap, but don't quite know how?
I think it sounds a bit counter intuitive to do it, but don't make it a big deal. Like, even though it is a big change sometimes, but when I look at like taking this role and going overseas, I'm like, if it all went belly up and things didn't go how I wanted it, it's a plane flight home. It's a plane flight. That's all I need. So I have a bank account that's separate that has enough money for a ticket home. I always have that there because I'm like, if things go wrong, I can always go back. It's not as scary as you make it. And what's really interesting is I think what people are fearful the most is that they will be forgotten about or that they're going to miss out. And it's interesting when I've been away for a long time for work or just on a holiday, when you get back home, nothing will have changed. I can guarantee it. Nothing changes. I catch up with my friends' lives within about 10, 15 minutes. And that's it. But they have continued on the same thing that they were doing every day. So their life has continued on this like very stable platform where you have just come from this massive change and you yourself have changed, your environment's changed. So don't worry about missing out. Like, you can be there for the big moments, big celebrations, stuff like that. But you're not going to miss out on the weekend that they went to the club. You're going to be having a much better time if you're doing something that's going to pursue your goals and your happiness. So I think it's just embrace the chaos and go with it. Like, it's not as scary if you don't put as much pressure on it. Take it a bit lighter.
Yeah, I like the idea of, don't make it a big, because when you make it a big deal, it puts even more pressure on it, and like it becomes even more scary. Even calling it leaping off a cliff sounds like that like evokes some strong emotions. Like, that's scary.
It's true.
Yeah, but like maybe I've started to think of it less of like leaping off a cliff and just more like, trailing a new path, blazing a new trail. Like you're not taking
Yeah.
the path that was put out for you. You're trying something new. You're exploring your you're exploring the your land or whatever
Mhm.
metaphor you want. You can carefully explore. You always know where that path is, the path that was set for you. You can always go back to it because you can always
Oh,
retrace
yeah.
your steps. But you might find something more exciting to you or something that brings you more happiness. And even if it's just leads you back to your original path, at least you know you chose that path.
Yeah, and I think there's such a power in choosing your path in life. And when you're describing the past, I had a visual of like a fork in the road.
Yeah.
Whereas one, there's it's a very clear paved road, very easy, and everyone's like, "Well, I'm going to go there." The second path is one that's going uphill, and you can't really see what's going on. And not many people want to take that because they're like, "Oh, there's a challenge there. This one, everyone else is going to this one. Seems way easier. Why would I?" But they don't realize that over the hill is just going to be this magical place. It's like it's not for everyone, absolutely, and I don't advocate everyone should do that because I think if we were all in taking the hard path in life, then society would kind of falter a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think if you have that yearning where you are unhappy with going through the routine, if you know that something just isn't fitting well in your life, stop forcing it to.
Yeah.
Be like, sit down and be like, okay, what is it that I'm not happy with? And go through, be like, I'm not happy with, where I live or my job or even my relationships. How am I going to change that so that I can be a better person, that I can enjoy this life? Being on earth is meant to be a beautiful school, essentially. It's a lesson on earth. Like we are privileged to be put on earth, like our soul has chosen it to get the education to become a better soul in its next life or in its soul realm. That was a little deep, but
Hey, we don't go deep at all on this podcast.
no, not at all. Light and fluffy.
But you're right. I like that idea of the fork in the road, and it's like it's a many pathed fork,
Hmm.
and we don't know if that path, that like mysterious path, is going to be better than the path that we were set on. But in a lot of cases, the path that we're set on, this paved path, isn't chosen by us. We're kind of molded into it. Like I
Yeah.
know, I was taught this is this is how you're supposed to live. This is how you're supposed to grow up. This is what being an adult means. Go to college, you get a good job, you have a family, you like work until you're in your 60s and then you retire and whatever happens
Hmm.
there happens. But and you don't know if any of these other paths are actually better than that path. But I've learned I value the choice. And sometimes,
Hmm.
I go up a path and I'm like, actually, that's not the path for me. Then I go back and I try a new path out, or I cross over. Maybe I'll crisscross between paths. But like the point is, I'm choosing it. And even
Yeah.
some of my friends ask, well, Vahagan, what if the path I'm on, the life I'm living, what if that's the happiest life I'll have? And I say, you know what? Fantastic. That's awesome that you found the happiest life that you'll have. But you won't know that until you explore a little.
Yeah, and I think it's that exploration that freaks people out. And I always think of the regret. There's more people that will always say, I regret that I didn't do that. I regret that I didn't take that chance. And that's more of the heavy weight of regret than I regret that I chose this. I regret that I went there. I You don't hear that as often. Of course it's still there. But I'm like, you probably won't regret it. And
Yeah.
as you said, you can always go back. The path isn't you take this one path and you change your life and that's the course you're on. You can come back, you can cross over, there's shortcuts. There's tons of paths that you can take and right, wrong, or in between. Like it's the power that you have chosen it. Your
Yeah.
parents haven't chosen it, your job hasn't chosen it. Like you have made a definitive decision for where you want your life to go. And I think that is a whole part of your happiness that you're not being dictated to, that you have chosen it. If you regret it, you will regret it. You're not angry at someone else for it, and you can change it.
Yeah.
It's important.
And I think it's also important to note that you aren't alone in your paths, in your journeys. Like, you don't have to travel alone. There are other people that are traveling their own paths. And you know what? We have advice too. We've like sometimes like I try to remind my friends who are very like mindful and are very intentional about their paths, but like forget to take the strength of their community. Sometimes
Yeah.
picking your own path can be hard. It can be like this endeavor that sometimes just brings you down because you're like, oh, why am I going up this hill? Like, why is it so difficult? And you know what? We're here. Ask us to throw a rope and we will throw a rope. Like, we are not alone in this journey of life. And we have to remember to pull from our communities because we give our communities strength and our communities are meant to give us strength too.
That's so true, and I think that is the scary thing of going against the normal or the grain. That they don't have. They're like, I'm not going to have support. No one's going to understand. I was like, if you reach out, if you just voice it, you'll be surprised at how many people will pop up and be like, I'm there with you. Like, I
Yeah.
can tell you what I've done, and if that gives you some advice or some guidance, perfect. And I also know this person, and they did this. You're gonna find there's actually a lot more. Not like meerkats just pop up and they're like, by the way, I have bits of information. It's actually there, but you just have to kind of seek it out, and it will present itself. I always say the universe presents when it needs,
Yeah.
and yeah, I think the advice is there. Definitely more prevalent now with people taking control of their life a bit more. Yeah, it's not as scary or intimidating as you're probably making it out to be when you make those changes. Make the change, and if you don't like it, go back.
Yeah.
It's easy.
And I think you mentioning that like when you made this big change, you had a fallback. So you weren't making this leap alone. Like you knew that like no matter what, you could always go back home, go back to your
Mm-hmm.
community, had the funds to do it. And I think that's important to note. Like you don't have to just blindly take these leaps. You don't have to blindly run across the path. You can take it. You can embrace uncertainty with a little bit of stability. And part of
Yeah,
it is going to be financial, part of it is going to be community, and a lot of it is going to be your self stability.
and it's jumping with the parachute. Like, yeah, you can jump blindly, but I know I always have the plane ticket flight money, and I've made good relationships. So, again, if I know things have really gone bad, I can go stay with my family. I have friends I can go stay with. I have jobs that I left on good terms with that I could call up and be like, hey, I'm actually back. Is there any positions? So it's not severing ties. We're not in the Amish community where they just shun you when you're done and they don't know you anymore. I would be shocked if your family or friends or community like shunned you out for
Yeah.
choosing a different path. They wouldn't do that. They'd be maybe like worried for you, but mainly excited, I think. And if things went wrong, they're not going to sit there arms folded and be like, well, told you so, you're not coming back. Like, that
Yeah.
just won't happen.
And if you fear that that might happen, then I suggest like reflecting on whether or not that's the community for you.
Exactly. Like, that is a telltale sign. If you are really worried, if I leave, they're never going to talk to me again. I'm going to lose everyone. They're going to hate me. It's probably not something you want to be around. That's not healthy. That sounds like it's a toxic environment where you're just stuck with each other, either out of situation or out of fear.
Yeah, and like they don't love you for you. They love you for what you believe or what you've accepted or what you've adopted. And I don't that's not a way to form community and form bonds. The people that will show up in your life when you need it the most are going to be the people that like know your heart, know you on a deeper level, truly understand you.
Yeah, I mean, I've even had people in my life when I started taking this job and living overseas, and I did get a bit of pushback from them saying, "Well, you're just leaving everything. You had a good job. Like, why do you want to do this?" And it was this challenge. And I remember I had a conversation with a family member one day who was giving me grief about it. And I just turned to her, I was like, do you not think that I have the right to pursue my happiness?
Yeah, right?
And it took her a bit by surprise, and she sat there, she's like, no, she's like, I just don't know why you keep wanting to like push beyond what you think you can do. Like, why weren't you happy with what you were just doing? I'm like, why should I be? Why shouldn't I explore? Like, I don't know why you're questioning me on something that is making me currently happy. You should be happy that I'm happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it made our relationship, it made me see her in a different light, um, whereas she wants to very much keep everyone down because seeing other people achieve more or push themselves further makes her feel insecure. And I was like, that is something that she needs to work on. It has nothing to do with my bearings in life. So she just needs to work on herself and hopefully find the happiness for others, regardless of her situation.
That's a good reflection. Because yeah, really nothing is personal. The things that people say, things that people do are more a reflection on them and their values or their fears, their regrets, than anything to do with us. It seems so like paradoxical because like, oh, you're talking to someone, and of course the things they're gonna say are directed at you or directed to. They seem to be directed to you, but they're more directed at you.
Yeah, and I think again in Buddhism, there's this some sort of saying, and I may misquote it, so don't come for me for it. But it's like holding a hot piece of coal when you're angry at someone,
Mm,
and with the intent to throw it at them,
yeah.
but instead you're just burning yourself. And it's like, that person holds, like ourselves and the other person holds all the emotions attached to whatever they're saying. And I think that's important to realize that if they're frustrated or angry at your decisions in your life, um, then that's something that they probably need to work on or communicate better with you of why they're feeling that way.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people in relationships find it difficult to do this because they're accounting for someone else's feelings, which is beautiful in a way. But it's like, is it compromising all of your happiness to make this other person happy? You've got to find that balance and communicate better. Be like, I'm very insecure at the moment with you wanting to go on these trips by yourself, or something along those lines. I see it happen on the tours a lot. If people travel without their partners, sometimes it can be quite a tense situation. So I find that sad to see. I'm like, it just needs better communication. But the ones that travel by themselves individually, and you can tell that they have a great relationship. They come home with all these stories, and then their partner will come back with stories and stuff. I think that's beautiful, but it is all about the communication and making sure that you are open about how you're feeling about it and not putting it on someone else.
Yeah, definitely. And it goes back to our conversation on the like people who try to be as selfless as possible and do feel like they have to be the providers, the emotional providers, and never provide for themselves. But like, yeah, that's not sustainable. We have needs, and just ignoring your needs isn't gonna help anything. In fact,
No.
it's probably gonna hurt your relationships because you're probably gonna lash out for not having your needs met, and your partner's gonna say like, what's going on? Like, why aren't you like talking about what your needs are?
Yeah, and I mean, I was that. I quit my job and my career. I left my family and I moved countries for a relationship. We'd been together a few years, and I was like, he's pursuing his dream. He was an athlete. I'm like, okay, he's
Yeah.
pursuing his dream. I'm gonna support him in this. And he didn't get to the level he wanted, but I remember then I tried to push myself, and I didn't have that support. And the anger and frustration I felt, I was like, I've given up everything for you, but I didn't communicate that in the beginning to say, I'm giving up a lot, and if in the future I need that back, I'm going to expect it back. So he just believed that I was going to follow him wherever, and we were always just going to be like together, and I was going to be on his coattails riding wherever he went. And that's on me, where I did not communicate what I wanted out of life. And I wasn't happy. And I think a lot of people lose themselves in this situation, whether it's relationships or family, where they're just, I have to give up something to make sure someone else is going to be happy and not upset with me. Be selfish.
Yeah. it's self-care, it's self-love. Like we have to take care of ourselves, and like that's a great, it's a great anecdote, because we would love to think that our partner is going to be there for us and will provide us that self-love that like we were hoping for. In fact, a lot of people call like finding a partner or like a soulmate or whatever as like completing yourself, your other
Oh,
half,
yeah.
things like
I
that.
hate that.
I do too, because it implies you're broken. And
Yes.
and if you feel like you're broken, no one else is going to provide you with that completion. You have to be that completion for yourself.
hmm I always say, I'm like, I am a whole person. You are a whole person. I
Yeah.
was like, we can work together, but you are never going to complete me. I always say, I'm never going to need you. The best thing you can ever hear me say is like, I want you, because that's a choice that I'm making.
Yeah.
I don't rely on you to give me what I need, because I have what I need. And you should want that for me. And I should want that for you.
Yeah. And I think the want is even more powerful, because it's like it's not a need. I don't
Mhm.
need you, but I am choosing you. And that
Yeah.
intention, that choice is such a powerful bond.
100%. It's the path again. It's like making those choices in life. You're wanting something, you're going for something, you are
Yeah.
actively, but when you just need something, like I need food to survive. Do I like have a passionate relationship with food? Sometimes if it's good pasta, but like, but I don't like, it's not the need that I want for a relationship. I don't want to like die without it. I want the same. If they feel that they need me all the time, that they're heavily weighted on my feelings for them, I'm going to be worried for that. I want them to be so happy and choosing their own path in life, and I'm going to be the biggest cheerleader for them. But I don't want them sacrificing. Compromise is different, but sacrificing their happiness for mine. I think that's where things go wrong.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And you know what? I don't think we should ever expect anyone to provide us our happiness. I don't think that, and I don't think that's a healthy way to be in a relationship, either.
No.
Like, if you want, like, I mean, obviously, you both have to provide like the relationship with health and relationship happiness itself. That's a separate entity from your happiness and your partner's happiness. Like, ultimately, that's our own journey. We can help other
Yeah.
people along with their journey, but we can't like hold their hand and do their journey for them.
No, and I think that's funny where you look at, your early 20s and you just get those puppy love and
Uh,
you haven't figured out yourself yet. And you're waiting for someone else to kind of put the pieces of the puzzle together and everyone's doing it. But yeah, I think, maybe it is when we get into our 30s, we're really confident in like who we've built. Or if we aren't, I think we are as a society a bit better about reaching out for help, doing some self help, talking to a therapist, journaling, whatever it is to try to work on yourself. Of course, there's exceptions, but the early 20s is just, yeah, chaos of finding love, and you don't know what you want. You don't know where you're
you
going. You
barely
don't even
know
know
who
who
you
you are,
are
but
in
you
your
want
in
someone to
your
love you for who
20s.
you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the tutorial.
It really is. You're out of school and you're like, okay, now what? Now I'm apparently an adult. I don't even know who I am. Like,
Yeah, you're like, and you leave school and be an adult. And you're like, what? I wasn't ready. But yeah, I think it's meant to be. I think a lot of people in their 20s do put pressure on themselves to be like, I have to choose everything now. You're like, no, you don't. I get it. We got that information and advice from, the older generation to us. Be like, don't rush. Take it slow. Did we listen? No. Um, so I don't expect it to change much, but it is funny when you start realizing how true that is. Like, you don't need to complete life in your 20s. There
yeah,
is so much longer ahead of
life
you.
is
Just,
long.
yeah, just enjoy it. Just enjoy it. It's, again, I've been studying a lot about souls, and I'm like, your soul has picked Earth as its school time. It's trying to get an education out of it. It wants to learn something. It doesn't need you to rush it. It's here for a reason. let it do its job. It's okay.
Yeah. Enjoy your journey. It's not meant to be a race. It's
Ooh.
I wouldn't even call it a marathon because that sounds like work. It's a stroll.
Yeah, and I don't like marathons.
Yeah. It's a stroll. It's a
It's a
lovely
stroll.
stroll. Stop and smell the flowers now and then. Take in the beautiful views. Say hi
Yeah,
to the passerbys. But enjoy your journey because it's truly yours.
very true. Don't need to rush it.
Well, Elle, we've been talking for a while, and I want to respect your time.
Same to you. Been great though.
Yeah. Do you have any final thoughts before we conclude?
I mean, I would just say if you are having questions about where you're at in your happiness, really sit down, maybe journal it out, and see if there's something that feels like a leap to you. See if it's something that you may want to test out. Give it a go. It might end up being the most beautiful thing ever.
That's really great advice. I highly encourage that. Plus one of that.
Well, thank you again for having me.
Yeah,
Great
thank
to
you
be
for
back on here.
agreeing to be on. I really enjoy having conversations with you and hope to have you on again in the future.
Let me know.
Yeah, definitely. And enjoy your travels. I know you're going to be on tour soon and excited to see all
Yes.
the pictures.
Oh, there'll be many to come.
Yes. And thank you all for watching and experiencing this with us. If you're watching on YouTube or Spotify, like and favorite or subscribe to the channel. It really helps. We have a new Instagram account, so I'll put that here with some editing magic. And as always, uh, embrace your chaos with kindness. Thank you so much, and thank you again, Elle.